on dairy. Now, we've known for some time that fat has a place in our diet, and that's raised a lot of questions, including which is healthier, whole fat or low fat. Now, a new study making headlines around the world not only questions the type of milk you serve your family, but also it's maybe finally setting the record straight on dairy in general.
3 servings a day. The government says that's how much low or fat-free dairy you should consume every day. It's been the official recommendation since 1985, when the USDA made the switch to low-fat dairy as a means of managing fat intake. Since then, fat-free dairy has been filling and flying off supermarket shelves. There's low and no-fat versions of milk, cheese, ice cream, even fat-free half and half. The fat-free trend first took root in the 1970s when a controversial government commission touted a low-fat diet as the best way to tackle heart disease and shed pounds. Now, 2 new landmark studies suggest people consuming full-fat dairy actually weigh less than their low and no-fat counterparts and have lower risk for diabetes. But with controversy still surrounding saturated fat, the kind found in full-fat dairy, what percentage should you be pouring?
Joining us is a world expert in this field, Dr. David Katz, preventive medicine expert at Yale and founder of the True Health Initiative. He's published, I think, Kelly, more than 200 research papers, 15 books on nutrition, lifestyle, and health. So I went to you, the expert on this. Why has this study had such an impact on our field?
Well, the impact, I think, is all these headlines. And since people eat every day, they're fascinated with every study about diet. And the ones that make the headlines aren't the best studies or the most important ones. They're the most shocking ones, the most surprising ones, and in particular, the ones that tell us what we want to hear, like ice cream is good for us today.
Right. That's right. Fat is good.
So I think that's the impact is really all about those issues.
Let's talk about what the studies actually showed. And there's 2 we're going to highlight. The first looked at a lot of folks and the effect of dairy and on their weight and diabetes. So go ahead.
Right. Yeah, so this study looked at an association between fats from dairy in the blood and the likelihood of developing diabetes over time. And as shown here, 46% lesser likelihood of developing diabetes in over 3,000 people when there was dairy fat in their blood. Now, importantly, that's just a study of association. There were other things that might have accounted for the lower rate of diabetes. We'll come back to that. But that's basically what this study showed.
But in theory, if you look at these, you say, okay, if I have fats from yogurt or milk in my blood, it seems that I have a much lower risk of getting diabetes on the surface.
And if that were a strong, consistent finding, and if it were consistent with other research, I think we could be more confident about it. But actually, the association with specific dairy fats was pretty weak. It wasn't totally consistent. In other words, there were associations between certain fats from dairy, but not all fats from dairy. So I don't think we have a definitive answer there.
Okay, and the other big study looked at something people always ask me about, which is, will I lose weight or gain weight if I eat whole-fat dairy?
Yeah, and I think that's a really important question, because if there is a defense against diabetes, as you know, the main driver of the risk for type 2 diabetes is weight gain. So this study, actually a larger group of women, there was an association between eating full-fat dairy and protection against weight gain over time. Now, does that make sense? Well, yeah, it could for a couple of reasons. First, if the fat in dairy fills us up and keeps us full, satiety, if we get satiety from the fat in dairy, then we might actually eat less calories overall, and that, of course, protects against weight gain. The other thing is that fat does not raise blood sugar directly, and it doesn't trigger an insulin release. And it's the rise in blood sugar and the release of insulin that causes fat to accumulate around the middle, and that's the fat that increases the risk for diabetes in particular. So there may be protection because of satiety, that lasting feeling of fullness, and there may be some protection because you're pushing out of your diet sugar and refined starch calories that do have an effect on blood sugar and insulin levels.
Come on over here. Let's draw some pictures here for everybody. Maybe this might help you understand how Dr. Katz is interpreting what we're seeing. So let's say you have skim milk, all right? You put skim milk in your stomach, and it has about 90 calories a cup, right? So you actually don't feel like you're completely full. But you had your milk, but you don't quite feel like you got it all in there, right? If you have whole milk, well, it's got fat in it, and for that reason, it actually has extra calories, 150 calories specifically. Now let's compare these. You got the whole milk, 150 calories. That's more than the 90 calories from the skim milk. So in theory, you should gain weight with whole milk and lose weight with skim milk. Don't you all think that? Right? Makes perfect sense, right? What Dr. Katz is saying is this difference of this 60-calorie difference, you make up over the course of the day because you get the grumbling, the growl, the hunger. That looks like a lot of us, right? You're still hungry after you have that skim milk. And the things you go after oftentimes will have sugar in them. In America, we eat a lot of sugar. So that might penalize you either because of the hormones or because the fat directly has a benefit. Who knows why? But that's been the big slippery slope here. Because on the surface, you'll see why everyone in America thought skim milk was better. Now, some researchers are saying that this type of fat you touched on was vitally important, and it might be the reason for this.
Yeah, so a couple issues here. So, given a choice between 90 calories from skim milk plus a whole bunch of calories from cookies because you're still hungry versus the 150 from whole milk, you may be better off with the whole milk. I think this all comes down to association and context. So these are studies of association. They don't prove cause and effect. Maybe the people who ate the full-fat dairy were people who were less concerned about their weight in the first place. Maybe they didn't gain weight because they weren't as prone to gain weight, and they said, I can afford the calories.
Yeah, only the dieters drank the skim milk.
We just don't know for sure. There were a lot of other things that might have accounted for the association, both with weight and with diabetes. There are some fats in dairy that might be specifically protective. And by the way, not all the fat in dairy is saturated. Some of it is conjugated linolenic acids, and these are thought to bump up metabolic rate just a little bit, but maybe enough to make a difference over a span of years. So there may be some healthy fats in dairy. To me, context is key. Now, your heritage is Mediterranean. There are a lot of healthy fats in the Mediterranean diet. You get them from nuts and seeds, olive, avocado, fish, seafood. I would argue if you're getting satiety from healthy, wholesome foods, fiber in vegetables and fruits and whole grains, beans and lentils, healthy fats from those sources, there's very unlikely to be much benefit from the fat in dairy. And the healthiest diets around the world, healthiest populations, they don't eat much dairy. The blue zones, they don't eat much dairy, and the dairy they eat is goat and sheep, not cow. And most of the intervention studies that have produced the best results, even preventing diabetes, haven't relied very much on dairy.
So what does David Katz do in his family? What do you actually do differently based on this research?
So I haven't changed anything based on these studies because I think they're interesting, but I don't think they provide a definitive answer.
So the average person trying to make a decision right now, the mom's going to go to the store today and buy a carton of milk. Does it matter, really, whether it's skim 1%, 2%, or full fat 3.5%?
I think it matters in context. If you're eating a typical American diet, you might derive some benefit from the higher fat varieties. And if you wanted to split the difference, 2% is right in the middle. It's had 50%.
That's what I do.
It's had 50% of the fat taken out. It hasn't had 98% of the fat taken. It's right in the middle. So again, if you have trouble controlling your appetite, your hunger, and you're eating a typical American diet, first of all, fix that. But dairy fat may be your friend. If you don't have trouble staying full, if you're getting plenty of healthy fat from nuts, seeds, olives, avocado, fish, I don't think there's a specific reason based on these studies to add dairy fat to your diet.
I'm going shopping for 2%. David Katz, thank you very much. My bottom line on dairy, the Oz approved options for both you and your family when we come back. We've been talking about a new study on dairy suggesting that whole fat is a healthier choice over low fat to ward off diabetes and weight gain. So, in light of this study and all the controversy around it, what are the best dairy product recommendations for you and your family? What are you going to buy? Pediatrician Dr. Tanya Altman has the answers because she's given them every day in her office. So first off, there's been a lot of controversy about whether adults should have any dairy at all. So what do you tell your patients and their parents?
So I talk to the parents as much about nutrition as I do the kids. And dairy products are important for all ages. They provide protein, calcium, vitamin D. These are nutrients that most people don't get enough of. So the recommendations are still 3 servings a day of dairy products for adults, cup of milk, 3/4 cup of yogurt. I know you love Greek yogurt like I do. Or a slice of cheese.
All right, let's talk about the milk specifically. There's 2 rules that you argue everyone should abide by when they're buying milk for their family.
So organic milk is from cows raised organically, which means that their feed doesn't contain chemical pesticides or fertilizers. They're not given hormones and they're not given antibiotics. So that's less exposure to all of those things for your family.
All right, and why do I have these cool little goggles here? What's the story?
Get to try it. These are fun. My patients love these. It's a great way to make drinking milk fun for kids.
Did I have it right?
I'll let you try it.
Oh my goodness. This is ridiculous.
In your mouth.
There's got to be an easier way to drink milk than this.
Wouldn't all kids love drinking milk through fun straws?
They would. They would. I got to say, I'd rather use these little curly Q things, though. It's a fashion statement. What about raw milk? What do you think about folks who love that?
So, raw milk has become trendy because some people perceive it as being less processed, but the process of pasteurization, the heating milk to kill bacteria, is actually important, especially when you have kids and pregnant women drinking the milk, because you want to make sure there's no dangerous bacteria.
Then there's the other end of the spectrum, these ultra-pasteurized milks. They never seem to go bad.
Right, ultra-pasteurized milk can last in the refrigerator for a lot longer, and in my house, I buy 3 types of milk. I drink non-fat, same as my 10-year-old. My 8-year-old likes 1% or 2%, and my 1-year-old drinks whole milk. So in some ways, ultra-pasteurization can help keep the milk longer in the refrigerator, but it does taste a little different, and some people don't love the fact that it's more pasteurized.
Yeah, something seems more natural that it would go bad, but I get if you're buying lots of different kinds for different age groups, you got to be careful. Okay, speaking of that, let's talk about the fact that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to kids. So explain to us, and we'll start off with kids that are under a year of age. What do you tell your patients about what makes sense for them?
So under 1 year of age, kids cannot drink regular cow's milk because they can't really absorb it. It doesn't have all the important nutrients they need at that age specifically. So you want to make sure you're giving your baby breast milk. Obviously, is the best thing from birth.
This is breast milk?
Until 1 and
That's
older.
one heck of a breast.
This mom did a great job here. And if you're
my
not giving
goodness.
breast milk, then you want to use an approved infant formula.
All right.
But you can give yogurt, and I love Greek yogurt even for babies starting at 6 months of age. Plain. You don't want to get them used to the sweet taste of anything with added sugar. And also cheese is also acceptable in a form that they can handle.
All right, what about ages 1 to 2?
So age 1 to 2, the brain is really 60% fat. So they do need the fat for brain development at that age. So over age 1, whole milk is recommended. Now, if you have a family history of high cholesterol, heart disease, then your pediatrician may recommend 2% milk, which still has enough fat for brain development.
And all this also counts, right?
Exactly.
And if you got a
Greek
mom
yogurt
this
for any
giving, by the
age.
way, you can breastfeed to you're an adult.
It would be nutritious for us as well.
Okay.
You want to try it with the straw?
No, I'm not going to try it. I stopped breastfeeding a long time ago. All right, now let's talk about people like us. Anyone over the age of 2, frankly, what do you recommend?
Over age 2, you can come down on the fat in the milk if you like the taste, and instead give your family healthy plant-based fats. Avocado, nuts, nut butter. We're even giving nut butter now at 6 months of age to babies to help prevent allergies. And salmon is great for all ages. Omega-3s, really healthy fat.
So you give young children fish fats.
I do. I recommend everything at 6 months of age. It gets them used to eating healthy. Start young, and their taste buds will like healthy food as they get older.
Thank you for the wonderful advice. Dr. Altman's new book is called What to Feed Your Baby. It's out now. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.